America Talk Radio Network. It's the 24th day of January 2019. It's also our weekly speed date with Megan Barth in about an hour from now. Megan, of course, the purveyor of ReaganBabe.com, and so she'll be here with us a little bit later on to help us break down some of the news of the day, which also includes New York legalizing abortion until birth as Catholic bishops are calling Cuomo's faith into question. We also got more Coventry High School backlash as the media continues to twist in the wind, and some very interesting comments from both the left and the right. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez siding with the GOP amongst, of all things. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. The president stating that he will give the State of the Union address after the shutdown is over. And Representative Sheila Jackson Lee resigning as Congressional Black Caucus Foundation chairwoman. She's not leaving the Houses of Congress, just this particular post in the wake of ex-staffers' lawsuit. This broadcast brought to you in part by our friends over at Liberty One Tech. Go check them out at liberty1tech.com for all your cyber needs, cybersecurity, your updates, whatever. They've even got the Text Talk program where you can just have like your own personal cyber consultant right there at your fingertips. So go check them out. Also, if your website needs updating, did some wonderful work on the website related to Heart of America. So give them a call, check them out, liberty1tech.com. And, of course, as always, brought to you by the Unknown America Project. We've been doing an awful lot of press here lately and having a lot of fun with it and talking about truth in the media, truth in our schools, truth and just reality. Posted some things up on Facebook last night related to the new law on abortion in New York. And, of course, as is always the case, got the accompanying, oh, that's just fake news comments, and then I have to go out there and prove that they're real. And it's such a waste of time because I don't know why, people get on Facebook and for some reason their IQ seems to go down. But the reality of it is the news media packages things for your consumption, and so that is a big part of the Unknown America Project, which is stemming the tide of falsehoods and fallacies as we spread the Christian conservative message of this program to as many tender ears as we possibly can. So go over and check out The Unknown America, theunknownamerica.com. A whole lot more coming out. The children's book is almost done. The board game will be out. And Unknown America 2 sometime this spring. It just takes an awful lot. Keeping up with all the Unknown America stuff. The problem is that the things are happening so quickly in this country, and I'm kind of compelled to keep them, some of these issues that I want to deal with from today. They're into the book, and the problem is that America's manufacturing so much hysterical news here lately that it's just kind of hard to keep up, and I get so overwhelmed with wanting to be all-inclusive, at least in terms of the book. So anyway, be patient with me. All right. So Megan will join us here in just a little bit. President Trump said that he will give the State of the Union after the shutdown is over. Capitulation? Surrender? Throwing in the towel? Don't necessarily know that I see it that way. President Trump announced on Twitter, because until it goes out on Twitter, it didn't really happen, yesterday, that he will deliver because everything's great in big league and all that kind of stuff, State of the Union address after the partial government shutdown is over, ending a tense day in Washington where Republicans criticized Nancy Pelosi for blocking the president from giving the speech. He actually tweeted, as the shutdown was going on, Nancy Pelosi asked me to give the State of the Union address. I agreed. Then she changed her mind because of the shutdown, suggesting a later date. This is her prerogative. I will do the address when the shutdown is over. I am not looking for, and then it ends. It goes on to another tweet. A lot of debate as to whether or not the president should have just done it in the Senate, whether he should have done it on the border with, angel families or Border Patrol agents present. the thing here is that there is a constitutional responsibility that the president must address Congress at least once a year, or inform them at least once a year. It does not necessarily have to be done in person. And it was actually in 1945 when Franklin Roosevelt wrote his State of the Union address and had it delivered in the Senate and read aloud. There's been debate about whether or not Nancy Pelosi can keep him out of the House of Representatives. In an official capacity, in other words, officially mandated or sanctioned by the House, yes, she has that right. She doesn't have the right to physically keep him out, but you also have to bear in mind she has to have the right to keep the TV cameras out, the lights off, the air conditioning turned way up if she's so compelled to do so, because she is the Speaker of the House, and by default, the Speaker has control over what goes on within that physical plant. Some people had posted yesterday on Facebook and other social media platforms that this was so atrocious because the Speaker of the House was blocking the American public from the State of the Union because this is the people's speech. No, it's not. It's a constitutional speech that has to be given by the president to the Congress for the purposes of informing them as to exactly what is going on in this country. It's become more of a campaign propaganda style spectacle just in the last few decades. And technically, the State of the Union isn't even the name of the speech. That's just a colloquialism that was given to it some years ago. So there's a lot of debate back and forth as to what the president should do here. You're certainly welcome to chime in at 929-477-3761. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham said that Pelosi's action sets a new low for American politics. He called Pelosi's decision absurd, petty, and shameful, adding that the judgment of history will not be kind. Now, he was actually on Fox last night, and I was unbelievably bored to tears and or drunk, and so I turned on Fox News for a little while, and Graham also made the comment that despite all of the consternation, my words, not his, between the Democrats and Republicans, that the Republicans had never kept Barack Obama from giving the State of the Union address. So is it petty? Yes. Is it imbecilic? Yes. Is Trump wrong to wait? I don't necessarily know. I can see an upside to this where he can make a point that Pelosi is impeding the constitutional requirement that he address Congress. And this is supposed to take place shortly after the first of the year. As a matter of fact, in the last 83 years, there has never been a State of the Union address which took place after the 2nd or 3rd of February. So, is he being crazy like a fox? Is he capitulating? I'm not 100% certain, but I'm leaning more on the crazy like a fox thing. Because the more he moves to the center, the more she moves to the left. And I'm starting to believe, from what I'm seeing, is that she's being entirely outflanked here. Now, there are calls for the president to deliver the speech from the Oval Office, again from the border, some from the Senate. Heck, constitutionally speaking, he could do it from a street corner with a microphone. But he said late last night that he's not going to look for an alternative venue due to the long tradition of the speech being delivered in the chamber of the House of Representatives. Pelosi told Trump in a letter Wednesday that the Democratic-controlled House would turn down a measure for him to deliver the speech. Trump then came back, called the decision, quote, a great blotch on the country that we all love. I'm loving the wordsmithing. White House officials told Fox that they were preparing or two tracks for next week's speech. The preferred track is an address at the Capitol. The second is a backup plan for a speech outside of Washington, D.C. Now, this particular decision by the president, as well as the Speaker of the House, did not leave me for want when it came to a whole lot of traffic out there in social media land. So, nonetheless, the president is taking this position. It does have the possibility of making Nancy Pelosi look peevish and infantile, and quite frankly, because now, the very first speaker to prevent a president from giving a State of the Union address within her chamber or their chamber is a historic blow to the future of this country. And see, this is one of those things that it's America, and it would be for future generations. Probably something of that gets lost to the history books. And so I'm kind of compelled to wait it out. But I do believe as Pelosi moves further and further and further to the left, and Trump moves further towards the center, and the willingness to negotiate, because he's asking for negotiations almost every single day. She is the one that is pulling the political rabbit, the rabbit out of the hat for the purposes of political posturing. And it's creating some very strange bedfellows out there, as even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez chose to side with the GOP in opposing a Democrat bill to end the shutdown. Now, her justification for it was a little bit different than theirs, but nonetheless, is Pelosi factionalizing her own party? Because the Democrats are getting weary of this. You got to bear in mind, these Democrat representatives, in many cases, are representing blue-collar workers. That's not to suggest that they're the party of the labor force, but rather just the fact of the socioeconomic aspects of the districts that they represent. And they're having to go home and explain to these people why in the world there's a continuing government shutdown when a lot of the people that are affected, the furloughed employees, are in fact more of the blue-collar force. Now, although they might not be affected within those individual districts, there is somewhat of a sense of solidarity here. The undertone that the old people up in Washington, D.C. don't give two shakes for the common man, the blue collar, the working class. So as the political bickering continues on in Washington, we still don't have a wall. We still don't got no money. We ain't getting a State of the Union. I mean, step back for just one moment, historically speaking. It's kind of funny, and this is where we get into some of these really interesting debates with certain groups. Like, one of the reasons that we got all into this dust up with this Coventry Catholic school and the supposed confrontation with this Indian beating a drum and all that kind of stuff, and how the media got that so unbelievably wrong. It's so interesting when you take a kind of a historical position on things like this and back away from it for just a moment and take a look at what's going on in America today. And what I mean by that is this. I'm 57 years old. There's quite a few of you that are older than me. I mean, I've met you. I know that's to be the case, and not that that's a bad thing. Nothing wrong with that. I'm kidding. But as we step back and remove ourselves from the news of the day just momentarily and stare back as though we were having an out-of-body political experience and looking back at what's going on in this country, you've got the longest shutdown in history, a debate over an almost infinitesimally small amount of money, comparatively speaking, a massive immigration crisis. You've got this new law that we're going to get into here in just a moment in New York, legalizing abortion up to some cases up until the day of birth. no State of the Union address, we that are a little bit older, with a few more miles on our odometer, we back up from this and we see how amazing it is, how far off the rails this country has gone, comparatively speaking, to those that are younger. In other words, they might not understand the historical significance of no State of the Union. They might not understand that it's a constitutional requirement that has never been violated, at least in terms of delivery of some form of communication between the White House and the upper and lower chambers. Everything is relative to age. And I think that's one of the reasons we're having some of the idiotic conversations in America. Now, there are older people, maybe they're 40, 50, 60 years old, that are every bit as misinformed to the reality of America and history and our past and policy programs and constitutions as the younger generation. Because, you know, we're always hearing things like, well, look at our colleges today. They're no longer places of learning. They're places of indoctrination. They've been places of indoctrination. And quite frankly, in a lot of cases, our elementary schools have been places of indoctrination for decades. And not necessarily some kind of purposeful Nazi-esque kind of stealing the youth away from society kind of indoctrination. In a lot of cases, it's unintentional or even unknown that it's occurring. So when you begin to really take a look at what's going on in this country and how unique it is becomes, is uniquer a word? Okay, it is now. It becomes more uniquer as you get older. Does that make any sense? In other words, the more you know, the more you've experienced being an American, the more you realize that the country we live in today is, quite frankly, anything but. We come back, New York's lost its damn mind. But then again, what else is new? You're listening to The Michael Hart Show. Hart of America and The Michael Hart Show is brought to you in part by the Unknown America Project. Unknown America, myths and little-known oddities about the greatest nation on earth, explores many of the falsehoods and fallacies and revisions in American history that impact the beliefs and the thoughts of many people in this country today. So if you'd like to learn some of the most enduring myths that have been perpetrated on the American public for the last 100-plus years in this country, go check out the book at heartofamerica.net. That's heartofamerica.net. And pick up a copy of Unknown America. It comes out to you absolutely no shipping, be autographed, and we'll even send you a copy of the United States Constitution as our way of saying thanks. So support the Unknown America Project by simply going to theunknownamerica.com, and thank you for your support. The Land Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a one-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out the Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
It's the Michael Hart Show. Come again?
The Michael Hart Show.
You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please.
A liberal dose of conservatism.
How'd you do that? I'm not even mad. That's amazing.
We're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why.
Not everybody, though.
I think our press jumps the gun a lot because we have so much circumstantial evidence against this guy that we basically are hoping that, Cohen's got the goods and what have you. And so it's wishful thinking.
Joy Behar on The View. Basically just saying, hey, the media's lost its mind. We want him out of here so bad. Got circumstantial evidence. I don't really know what that is. Or because you like Russian dressing on your salad doesn't necessarily mean you're colluding. But nonetheless, it was a pretty raw admission that they are, let's face it, losing their mind. Trump derangement. Because he's in the way of things like immigration and drug importation and killing of babies, at least theoretically speaking, as it relates to repeal of Roe versus Wade. So much that they have lost their minds that now you've got people, even like Savannah Guthrie, over on the Today Show, in her interview with one of the Covington students, taking heat because she allowed this young white man, she gave him a voice and didn't give young black males a voice. Well, that's not the story they were doing, and there was no young black males involved in this particular story. Perhaps we'll get into that a little bit later on. But think about some of the headlines that I've got here today. New York legalizes abortion until birth. Savannah Guthrie slammed over interview with student, and it's nasty tweets out there. Ocasio-Cortez opposing bill that would fund ICE. By the way, she was the lone Democrat. Trump says the State of the Union will occur after the shutdown. Sheila Jackson Lee resigns as Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Chairwoman in wake of ex-staffer's lawsuit. Man, I tell you what, hell in a handbasket. Man, we is there. This country is losing its collective mind, and it's so much of it. And I finally came to a realization last night as to what is really going on, at least in the minds of the media. They have lost their minds so much. It's not a matter of Trump being here and them being there and these two lines of opposition that at some point are in parity. No, the left has gone so far left that somebody who is a center-right moderate like Trump and a former Democrat seems extremist and alt-right to them. That's how far the left has moved. It has nothing to do with Trump. Finally, I think I figured out that it really doesn't, in their minds, have anything to do with Trump. It has to do entirely with their own insecurities and the simple fact that they are wayward as they can possibly be, and there's enough of them that are stupid or dumbed down to buy into the tripe of their leadership and their media. Now, before we get into this New York story, I want you to listen to Joy Behar just one more time. I may very well play this every day for a while because it's a wonderful admittance as to how much they have gone off the rails and how unfounded their desires are.
We're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why.
Not everybody, though.
I think our press jumps the gun a lot because we have so much circumstantial evidence against this guy that we basically are hoping that, Cohen's got the goods and what have you. And so it's wishful thinking.
So here she is justifying the media, and as though they are the arbiters of sanctimony, that they are the ones that are in charge of the sanctification and the purification of America. Kind of has a Nazi feel to it, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And all this circumstantial evidence, because the president, he wants to secure the borders, which is a constitutional right. He wants to give the State of the Union, which is a constitutional requirement. He wants to lower taxes, which we all desire. Wants to shore up border security capacity in terms of guards. Wants to make health care more affordable, reduce regulations on businesses, change the corporate and value-added tax structures, shifting them to foreign entities rather than American workers, that's you paying for them, more fair trade agreements that benefit Americans as opposed to our economic adversaries, and support the criminal justice system. Man, that's extremism. And ironically, and I've said it before, okay, seriously, I don't have time to pull the audios, but I will if you demand it. Trump has said and done nothing that the Democrats themselves did not say in the last 10 years. And I mean all of them. That's the problem. He has taken Democratic policies, immigration, travel ban, lower taxes, border security. These are their ideas. He has simply taken their ideas, brought them to fruition, and so they have to take a completely opposite and off-the-charts tact because they can't come up with any other ideas to combat with him. Do you know why they want him out? Because they realize if they don't get him out, they will lose the White House for years to come. The people that helped to take back the House of Representatives are even more left than the left. You have certain states in this country, California, New York, that are so far removed from reality that they put an Alexandria Cortez in, or any one of these MFers calling the president out. Folks, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm being damn serious about this. And I know a lot of you know this, because a lot of you know me personally. I've got liberalism in my family. And I'm telling you, they are mentally unstable about a lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. But I have had things leveled my direction. I have heard things about Trump supporters that are absolutely now the new bigotry in America is a red baseball cap has replaced the hood of the KKK. Folks, it's insanity. And it's scary, and it's why I am, using a different quality of hollow point in my pistols. Now, I don't mean to incite a violent type of broadcast, but the reality of it is, when you look at things that are going on as it relates to Trump, and then you bring in things like, and hang tight, callers, I'm about to get right to you, New York. First off, Andrew Cuomo is under fire from faith leaders after he signed a bill into law that legalizes abortion up until birth in many cases. he directed the One World Trade Center and other landmarks to be lit in pink Tuesday to celebrate the passage of Reproductive Health Act. Cuomo called it a historic victory for New Yorkers and our progressive values. Let me tell you something. There's nothing value in progressive. It's a sick bastardization of reality. This was done on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, of course, the 1973 Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion. But New York Catholic bishops have slammed Cuomo for the move just days after he touted his Catholic faith during the State of the State address. Just so you know, if you're not familiar with this, although it's not necessarily heavily practiced, in Catholicism, birth control is not permitted. It is considered to be interfering with the procreations of life and God's interaction with humanity. Paraphrasing, of course. So by extension, one would believe that the termination of a pregnancy would fall right in line with that type of belief. According to Reverend Edward B. Scharfenberger in an open letter to Evangelist on Saturday, your advocacy of extreme abortion legislation is completely contrary to the teachings of our Pope and our Church. I shudder to think of the consequences this law will wreak. You already uttered threats. I can't even read. You have already uttered harsh threats about the welcome you think pro-lifers are not entitled to in our state. Now you are demonstrating that you mean to write your warning into law. Will being pro-life one day be a hate crime in the state of New York? So now, for the health of the mother, at least that's the way it has been positioned, baby can be terminated at almost any time. By the way, not a position that was necessarily foreign to the state of Alabama as it relates to one Democrat senator. New York was the first state to legalize abortion in 1970. Cuomo, after the law was signed, directed the 408-foot spire on One World Trade Center, the Governor Mario Cuomo Bridge, and others, to be lit in pink to celebrate this achievement and shine a bright light forward for the rest of the nation to follow. That's a quote. Celebrate this achievement and shine a bright light forward for the rest of the nation to follow. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens to a society that does not value life, does not value gender, does not respect the Gospels, does not respect the flag, does not respect the president, does not respect sovereignty, does not respect truth or reality. We celebrate achievements and shine a bright light forward for the rest of the nation to follow, that we may euthanize our babies if we are not going to feel up to committing to their raising, or perhaps a health issue, or perhaps it's just not a good day. What a sick bastard. Let's get out to the phones. 929-477-3761. Hello, Clark. How are you?
I'm great. And yourself?
Frustrated.
Well, okay. So on the Democrats taking stances on things that they supported 10 years ago and Donald Trump wants to do now, they were talking points that the Democrats were happy to support when they never had any intention of doing anything. The problem with having Donald Trump in office is he's actually going to take action. It's one thing to talk about a wall when you never have any intention of doing anything or building it, whereas you give Donald Trump the money and he's going to build the wall. It's one thing to say you want to help minorities, but if you actually help them and put them on an even footing, you no longer have the talking point. You no longer can promise to help somebody if they're equal with somebody else. So, it's to their benefit to have perpetual problems that they can talk about, but never actually do anything about it. And I think the thing on the wall, the reason they're so against it now, whereas they talked about it before, is like I say, Donald Trump will actually build it, and it cuts off future voter supply. And it's a life or death thing for them on this. And they're not going to back off of it unless they have to. And he has put them quite in the conundrum there. You did mention something about how far the Democrats are going left. I think when Donald Trump is out of office, the last legacy of the Barack Obama presidency will be the hard left shift of the Democrat Party. I really think that that's going to be the only thing left. And I don't know how much of that is Barack Obama pushing it to the left, and how much of it he just made them feel free to go as left as they wanted to go. And then the last thought I had is you talked about not being a psychiatrist or a psychologist. My grandfather's sister was not the first female in the United States to go to med school, but there hadn't been very many before her, and she was a practicing psychiatrist for her entire life. And the one thing I remember Genevieve saying, I was little and asked her about psychiatry, and she looked at me and she said, I think the vast majority of the people that go into psychiatry do it so they can figure out what's wrong with themselves.
No comment, Clark.
Well, that's what she told me, and that sticks out in my mind. That's about the only thing I can remember Genevieve telling me. But that has stood out, and I just every time I listen to the psycho babble, I just have to remind myself.
I know, and it's so hard to get your head around it because, when you're talking about, the expansion, and part of what Cuomo has done in New York is taking up a legal position that will give them some, thought leverage, if you will, if the Supreme Court will likely not overturn Roe versus Wade. What they would probably do, however, is volley it back down to the state level. That's where it's going to start meeting some legal challenges across the country, and this just further solidifies the state's position on their right to actually have the abortion statute stay on the books. But when you read into this stuff, because you just can't get your head around it, and then you look at Pelosi. Pelosi is also, for example, a Catholic, and Cuomo's been called out for his Catholic beliefs. The whole pro-choice thing doesn't even theologically fit, regardless if you like Catholics or not, regardless what you think about the Protestant Reformation. The point is, it doesn't fit their theology. So they are working in a world where there's no continuity in terms of value and integrity. And for the life of me, and I don't disagree with you, that the Democrats have very oftentimes played lip service to the desire to do all these things. Trump, I guess, heard it because he was living in their universe for so many years. He was one of the biggest Democrat donors in America. And now he's like, okay, you guys don't want to do it. I'll run as a Republican and I'll do it. And all of a sudden he's a pariah. And they just keep coming up with all this just weird, wacky stuff, Clark. And for the life of me, I don't grasp why.
Well, Catholics that say they support abortion, to me, that's tantamount to having a Christian that says that, yes, I believe everything except that Jesus was the Son of God and that's my salvation.
Yeah, I mean, it is close.
Again, it's paying lip service to something, but not being actually willing to take a stance or do something. And I don't know, the hypocrisy is just never going to cease, Michael. It's just one thing after another. And that's, the Catholic stance where you have people that purport to be Catholics and yet support a woman's right to choose. I don't know. That's kind of antithetical, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well,
Yeah, I
better
hear your
get back
frustration,
after-
Clark.
Yeah. I'm going to keep listening. You have a good visit with Megan this morning.
I'll do it, Clark, and thanks for the call.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. Yeah, Megan Barth is going to be joining us here in about 18, 19, 20 minutes. So there is an awful lot of other things that we have got on our plate today that we're going to be discussing. Also, the weirdness of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez continues. She actually defied her party yesterday, voting against a bill to end the partial government shutdown on the grounds that the proposal would fund immigration and customs enforcement, border security. The bill, backed by the Democrat Party's leadership, passed 234 to 180. Every House Democrat, except Ocasio-Cortez, voted for it. The measure even attracted the support of 10 House Republicans. Now, breaking it down, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez does not vote for the termination of the shutdown over ICE funding. Most Republicans oppose the measure because it did come up short on President Trump's demand regarding the border wall by providing only about $1.6 billion for border security-related initiatives. But Ocasio-Cortez justified her vote against the bill because it included funding for federal immigration authorities. She told the New York Post, quote, "We are having conversations with our community after we voted for the Department of Homeland Security funding for the first time. We're hearing back from a lot of our local community, and they're uncomfortable with any vote on funding for ICE." Why do you think that is? Could it be because she presides over a district of illegals? Now, I do realize that she not only has the constitutional right, but the constitutional responsibility to represent her district. But she also has the constitutional responsibility in her oath of office to defend this nation and the Constitution. So because she represents a district, and you would have to think that in that environment, that the people that would be the loudest would be the ones most affected by it. Kind of like going back to Clark's call about people going into the medical health services industries, go into it because maybe they're going to diagnose themselves. You know, there's an old adage in professional speaking circuits that motivational speakers speak to issues they themselves need to hear. And I was in that industry for many years, and I find it to be the truth. Which leads me to believe that people within her district are the ones, and the ones screaming about the funding for ICE, or the lack thereof in the case of this vote, are the ones that would be most affected by the presence of ICE. Seems pretty obvious to me. We're hearing back a lot from our local community, and they're uncomfortable with any vote on funding for ICE. Things that just make you go, Luckily, our good buddy Megan Barth will be joining us soon. You're listening to The Michael Hart Show as we sit here and collectively fiddle.
Have a water problem? Drainage around your home can cause all kinds of headaches. Disease-causing mold, cracks in walls, foundation failure, even roof leaks. At Alabama Water Management, we know that problems can often be fixed from where the water is coming from, outside. Our approach is less invasive and less expensive. So before you spend thousands on a potentially unnecessary waterproofing system, call Alabama Water Management for a free evaluation. Alabama Water Management. Don't waterproof, water prevent.
Find Alabama Water Management on Facebook or on their website at alah2o.com. Hart of America and the Michael Hart Show is brought to you in part by the Unknown America Project. Unknown America, myths and little-known oddities about the greatest nation on earth, explores many of the falsehoods and fallacies and revisions in American history that impact the beliefs and the thoughts of many people in this country today. So if you'd like to learn some of the most enduring myths that have been perpetrated on the American public for the last 100-plus years in this country, go check out the book at heartofamerica.net. That's heartofamerica.net. And pick up a copy of Unknown America. It comes out to you absolutely no shipping, be autographed, and we'll even send you a copy of the United States Constitution as our way of saying thanks. So support the Unknown America Project by simply going to theunknownamerica.com, and thank you for your support.
It's not right versus left. It's us versus them. It's the Michael Hart Show.
We're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why.
Not everybody, though.
I think our press jumps the gun a lot because we have so much circumstantial evidence against this guy that we basically are hoping that, Cohen's got the goods and what have you. And so it's wishful thinking.
Yeah, wishful thinking indeed. We're just hoping that Cohen's and he speaks to Miller and that they all got the goods and we'll get Trump out of here because he wants to lower taxes and secure our border and create jobs and, oh my gosh, and fund ICE and all this other kind of stuff. It's just, it's atrocious. It's the worst ever. Oh, what are we going to do? Representative Sheila Jackson Lee resigned as the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation yesterday after a former staffer filed a lawsuit earlier this month claiming she was fired as retaliation for planned legal action related to a 2015 alleged rape by a supervisor. According to the foundation, we are grateful for Representative Jackson Lee's unswerving commitment to the foundation and her efforts to help shape and elevate our programming for the last 2 years as chair and a number of years as a board member. That from the foundation interim president and CEO, Elsie Scott. Also in a statement, the Congresswoman's values the foundation's ideals and does not want to be a distraction during the legal proceedings of the suit against the CBCF, which is the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And again, there's a lawsuit against the foundation because one of the staffers said that there was a 2015 rape by a supervisor. So now she's stepping down as chairwoman. Does anyone else find that remotely interesting? I'm not saying that she is necessarily complicit in a cover-up. But if you are not, number one, and you are the leader of this particular organization that is now under the microscope of a lawsuit, would you not want to guide your organization, or at least attempt to guide your organization through those murky waters as opposed to distancing yourself from it? Unless, ? Jackson Lee's office had no immediate comment on the resignation, but previously denied that it retaliated against or otherwise improperly treated the staffer who was identified in the lawsuit only as, well, Jane Doe. Oh, so now all of a sudden it comes a little more clear that maybe the staffer for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, actually did work for Sheila Jackson Lee, and maybe there was a cover-up that she is looking to distance herself from. Oh, I'm sorry. Gerald Nadler said this decision does not suggest any culpability by Representative Jackson Lee. The move comes one day after the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence said that it could not support making Jackson Lee the lead sponsor of legislation reauthorizing the Federal Violence Against Women Act. I thought they were all for the women and the babies and, the elderly and the labor people and people in the inner cities that are starving to death and, those that are homeless. Yeah. Kind of gets back to what Clark was saying earlier, doesn't it? The fact that the Democrats, they're always out there for somebody, but they don't ever seem to help somebody. Is that they kind of pretend that they're out there helping and stuff. Mm-hmm. So now we've got somebody that was being considered to be the sponsor of legislation reauthorizing the Federal Violence Against Women Act, who now has a staffer that has been accused of rape, that is now distancing herself from the organization while denying any responsibility whatsoever about the allegations of rape. And this was going to be the woman that was the sponsor of the Federal Violence Against Women Act. Oh, my gosh. I can't. I'm going to take this story, and I've got it written out, and I'm going to grab it here on the corner. And it's going over here in the big trash can because that is just disgusting to me. But then again, almost every story that I have in front of me is. And then speaking about this particular story as well, the Today Show co-host Savannah Guthrie, now she's in hot water over her interview with Covington Catholic High School students Nicholas Sandman, as critics on both sides of the aisle have complained about what they call polarizing sit-down. Sandman and his classmates, as many of you are aware, were vilified on social media for supposedly harassing a Native American man until additional footage proved that the kids who were wearing Make America Great Again caps actually were not the aggressors. People in Hollywood and the halls of Washington are lining up to backtrack away from their allegations of bigotry and hatred. The aftermath has resulted in a national story that has dominated the news cycle, obviously, with some critics, again, backtracking their criticisms. Unfortunately, some have actually doubled down. This is where some of these comments about the MAGA hat being the new KKK hood, it's also what inspired this little outburst that we heard a couple of days ago, one that has made quite a bit of the rounds throughout, media cycles.
We're desperate to get Trump out of office. That's why.
Not everybody, though.
I think our press jumps the gun a lot because we have so much circumstantial evidence against this guy that we basically are hoping that, Cohen's got the goods and what have you. And so it's wishful thinking.
So I'd like to point out that she has all but admitted that much of what's going on in the press is just reactionary and has no roots in the truth or reality. The Covington Catholic High School story, all it is proof of a much larger and looming problem. And that's the fact, and I've said it pretty much every day since I've been on the air, now going on 11 years doing this program. You're being lied to. Left, Democrats, liberals, you're being lied to. And you're being lied to by people that don't necessarily know they're lying to you. Now, there's a side of me that is receptive to giving props to those on the left that did, in fact, publicly backtrack, apologize, and say that they were incorrect. But it doesn't change the fact that there are quite a few folks that are doubling down because they're not going to let it go because it's a platform. The anger from the left started even before this particular interview aired when Guthrie announced the interview via Twitter on Tuesday. She was quickly condemned by thousands as her tweet received 44,000 comments compared to only 2,300 retweets. Author John Pavlitz told NBC News that the host should be ashamed of herself, while John Wesley Shipp, an actor, accused Guthrie of propagating this whitewash. Bishop Talbert Swan sarcastically asked for the link to today's show interviews, that it be linked with the parents of black boys who have been killed by police. The woman's reporting on a story. What does this have to do with police shootings? These examples are a very small fraction of the hate that Guthrie received for simply announcing the interview, and things didn't go much better for her after it ended. Author Jeff Jarvis wrote, Guthrie's voice drips with white-on-white empathy. And writer Laura Witt said, white women will always do the most to protect and humanize the white supremacist patriarchy. Dun, 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 dun. White women will always do the most to protect and humanize the white supremacist patriarchy. Just kind of an observation, but why wouldn't they want to protect and humanize the white supremacist matriarchy? I mean, after all, they are women. I don't know. Just an observation. Author Angie Thomas told Guthrie she should be ashamed before declaring, I'm still waiting for the day kids of color are given this much sympathy. Again, it was an interview about a news story. One viewer replied to NBC's tweet that the interview was terrible and Guthrie softballed the questions, while other users just used profanity to mock the co-host of Today. The critical reactions of the typical non-controversial Guthrie were endless. Left-leaning voices weren't the only ones making noise. Conservatives also took the issues with the interview because one of the questions regarding whether the student saw his own fault in any way during the interaction. The Daily Caller's Benny Johnson called one of Guthrie's questions despicable and accused her of leading the teenager. Guthrie was also accused of putting words in his mouth and whitewashing. Yeah, then the Media Research Center got in the middle of it as well. Okay, so let's put this story over here in the round file as well as the media continues its unraveling tour from coast to coast. You listen to the Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. Please share the program. Tell somebody else about the program today. Support the Unknown America Project as we continue to right the inaccuracies of American history. Also support our good friends over at LibertyOneTech.com. That's Liberty, the number one tech.com. You'd be stunned how complex keeping all this technology moving forward is, and crunching the numbers and making absolutely certain that we get everything up to speed and on board, and all the editing and the technology and the computers that have to go into it. So please support the folks over at Liberty One Tech for your website needs, your cyber needs, your cybersecurity needs. If you want to have your computers checked out for cyber threats or whatever the case may be, that's LibertyOneTech.com. And also don't forget to share the program as well as support the program. We would appreciate your consideration. And if you're a business owner and you would like to put your message on this particular program, you can go over to heartofamerica.net, click on the Patreon link. You don't have to do it through Patreon, but it's $150 a month for 40 60-second spots to advertise whatever you want to advertise. No contracts, cancel at any time, and we'll even do the copywriting for you at absolutely no charge whatsoever. And we will do everything in our power to help you grow your business. Real quick, going to take a real quick break, come back on the other side as Megan Barth is joining us on this edition of the Heart of America with Michael Hart. Y'all stick around because we're coming right back. Report, the magazine for the American landowner, is a proud supporter of the Michael Hart Show. Currently, they're offering an exclusive subscription price for listeners of the Michael Hart Show. So click on the subscribe button on landreport.com and enter the code HARTSHOW at checkout and receive a 1-year discount on America's #1 land magazine. You'll get a full year of the Land Report, which normally goes for $59, for only $15. That's a 75% savings off the cover price. Again, that's promo code HARTSHOW at checkout of thelandreport.com, and make sure to check out The Land Report on Facebook if you love land.
Anyone can tell you the news.
We welcome Diamond and Silk.
Mark Zuckerberg will end up, and it's going to be a face without the book.
Book without the face.
Hey, Megan, how are you?
Now they're chipping away at the normalization of pedophilia, and the left is embracing this type of behavior.
We welcome Dinesh D'Souza.
I know I ticked him off. In a certain sense, it's a giant up yours to Obama, and that's why the left is freaking out over it.
Jack Kennedy and LBJ, Clinton, and the double standard from the left.
Yeah, I love how the left does nothing but push the most bizarre practices down our throats and up our tailpipes.
It takes a real man to tackle the hot issues that really matter.
Michael Hart is the man of this house.
Welcome to the Michael Hart Show.
Hey, welcome back. It is now time for our weekly speed date with Megan Barth of ReaganBabe.com, and we welcome Megan into this edition of the Michael Hart Show. How are you, Megan?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm just going crazy trying to figure out the news of the day. We got no wall. We got no State of the Union. We got Trump now saying he's not going to give a State of the Union until the government is unshut down. We've got all this craziness with the media, with the Covington Catholic High School, trying to sort that out. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez voting with the Republicans. It's enough to just make your mind go. So what's going on in your world?
Yeah, I started a 2-hour morning program this week on Monday. I am right now up in Reno, so we're broadcasting from northern Nevada, which includes Lake Tahoe, obviously Reno, our capital, Carson City. And it has been crazy news. I was having dinner last night with a local casino owner here, and he goes, where do you think he's going to have the State of the Union? What would you think? And I said, gosh, he should have it at a border state, Texas, Arizona. Heck, he could have it at the new Cowboys Stadium. He could probably fill up that stadium. And then right when I leave, Trump tweets out that he is not going to do it. And I don't know. I have very mixed feelings. I've never seen Trump kind of back away so quickly, really, from something he said he was going to do, and then all of a sudden he's not going to do it. And I really haven't had a chance to digest it or even look into it yet. But it seems to me, at least from his tweet last night while I was speaking to that friend of mine, that he kind of gave Nancy Pelosi what she wanted. And so I'm just not very happy about that.
I'm going back and forth with it myself because, in one hand, it does appear as though perhaps he has capitulated. Maybe he is, somebody made a comment last night on one of the news programs that, the more he moves towards the center, the more she seems to move towards the left. Now, there's also the argument, however, that in the last 83, 84 years, the State of the Union address has never been delivered past the 3rd or 4th of February. And in addition to that, the Constitution requires that there at least be a communication. It doesn't have to be a formal address, but that there be some kind of communication between the White House and the members of Congress. So I was starting to wonder, maybe somebody got in his ear and has convinced him that if you go ahead and say, I'm not going to do it until after the shutdown, then all of a sudden you put all these historical asterisks on Nancy Pelosi as being the first Speaker of the House that prevented a State of the Union address, and also that perhaps even caused her to violate a requirement in the actual articles of the Constitution. I don't know if that's what his thought process is or not, but it definitely seems to kind of, to me, make a little bit more murky her decisions, because now there's ownership even of the State of the Union address in addition to the wall and the shutdown. I don't know if that's his thought process or not, but that thought did kind of permeate my mind last night.
Well, and I also thought, what does he know that we don't know? Does he have a feeling, or does he have some insight, rather, that there are more Democrats coming towards his side? And, there's a few headlines I've read over the last few weeks that more Democrats, especially, I guess, if you want to call them moderate socialists, are basically, saying reopen the government, give him what he wants, give him the money that he wants. So perhaps he knows something that we don't know. I usually don't second guess his decisions, because ultimately we've been taught time and time again that his instinct or what he does ends up working out in the right way.
Right, I understand. Well, again, it's just
I got you mid coffee. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a quagmire, and it's getting murkier and murkier and murkier by the day. And I'm not 100% certain, what the end result's going to be, Megan. I posted something on social media last night. A lot of people seem to support the idea of delivering the State of the Union from the border, doing it from the Oval Office, doing it just in the Senate, and making, Pelosi look like, the petulant little, brat that she's really acting like, and not necessarily my first B word choice there. But, nonetheless, I don't know exactly how he's desiring to play it out. The reality that she also seems to be, factionalizing even her own party over this. And, you're right. I think you are seeing some Democrats begin to get very wary of this, because it doesn't appear. Now, I honestly believe that Trump will eventually win out on this. He's too vested in it. But I just don't know what it's going to look like at the end, or what we're going to have to go through in order to get there. Because there was even a vote yesterday with, Alexandria Cortez, not voting with her own party because of a bill that had been introduced that funds ICE as part of the government shutdown resolution. So here you've got representatives in the House that, are hating immigration all the way around, which, of course, it kind of parrots into what Pelosi's talking about. But they all seem to be running with their own agendas these days.
Right. Yeah. And let me just mention that. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many of her socialist friends in the Democrat Party, because really that's what the Democrats are, want to abolish ICE. Okay. Abolish ICE. Well, something just happened here in northern Nevada, and it happened last week. Over the course of 4 days, and this is leading up to my first 2-hour morning show here, we had 4 murders. And at the time, while these murders were happening, I'm like, another one. The station owner had called me and said, we're going to stay on top of this. Obviously, it's going to be at the top of your show, but we think we might have a serial murderer. Now, you have to understand Northern Nevada. Northern Nevada is very similar to, rural California, for example. Northern California and Northern Nevada are mirror images of each other. Huge ag country, agriculture, a lot of ranches, livestock, farms, rodeo is here, and it's very rural. Gardnerville, in Gardnerville, for example, there were 2 murders. Gardnerville in 2 days. Gardnerville hadn't had a murder in 2 years. And then they had 1 murder, and before that, they hadn't had any murders. So a very rare occurrence. So this shook, these 4 murders in 3 days shook this community. Turns out that a 19-year-old illegal alien from El Salvador went on a killing spree and killed a 53-year-old woman, execution style, robbed her, killed her execution style, home invasion. Then a day later, he went over and killed a 73-year-old woman, execution style, robbed her. That was in Gardnerville. Then he went over to South Reno, and he killed a couple, 81-year-old and 80-year-old couple. The 81-year-old male used to be the president of the Reno Rodeo Association. So very well-revered older couple, pillars of this community. They ended up tailing this 19-year-old illegal alien, I believe based on a tip from a pawn shop. That's not confirmed, but I interviewed 2 sheriffs, and that's likely what happened. So they end up tailing this human piece of debris, and they, of course, find some stolen property, but they initially arrested him and held him on an immigration detainer. Without being able to hold him on an immigration detainer, we may never have, number one, charged him with 4 murders, because if our police department weren't able to hold this kid, he would have escaped into the shadows, maybe already been in Mexico already. So this, to me, those Democrats, like Sandy, the socialist from Yorktown, who is AOC. I can't even say her name, but her name was Sandy in high school, so I'm going to call her Sandy. Democrats and socialists like Sandy from Yorktown and like Christian Gillibrand and the others who are saying that we must abolish ICE. Well, abolishing ICE would have potentially let this 19-year-old from El Salvador escape without any sort of accountability, and we would have had 4 potentially unsolved murders.
It's unbelievable on so many levels, and in the comments of Ocasio-Cortez, we're hearing back from a lot from our local community, and they're uncomfortable with any vote on funding ICE, which would only lead me to believe that she's leading a constituency of violators, because if you ain't got nothing to worry about, you ain't got nothing to worry about. And obviously they're going to be the ones that are going to be the most vocal in this particular situation. But now you've got people in the House, she takes an oath of office, Megan, not only to defend, she has to represent her constituents. I get that. But I fear that she's not hearing from the majority of her constituency. but she has an oath of office. She's taken an oath, or when she was inaugurated. You remember that day when she, took the oath to uphold the Constitution and to protect this nation. And I'm perplexed how somebody can be so far removed from reality that she's just going like the wind. Because you know something, the representatives and the senators, they do have a responsibility to represent their constituents, but they have a responsibility to represent their constituents' best interests, not necessarily what the majority, and I think in this case probably a minority of the constituents believe. Sometimes you've got to make decisions that are the right decisions for your nation and your district, and be damned with those that fear the cops because they have a reason to fear the cops.
Well, right. But then, looking at a socialist, whether it is Alexandria, Sandy, or whether it is any Democrat, quite frankly, they don't believe in the Constitution. They're going to put their hand on it, but it means nothing to them. It means absolutely nothing to them because they want to destroy it. So if you want to destroy something, who cares? That they figure they're going to change it anyway. It's a living and breathing document, don't you know? They need to fundamentally transform this country.
If that's the case, and I'm not arguing with you that it is, if that's the case, then all of a sudden Pelosi's stance on the State of the Union makes a lot more sense. Because who cares?
Right. Yeah. When and I was making this point yesterday, and perhaps I think it was on another show, but when you want to fundamentally transform something, you don't love it. So you wouldn't go up to your girlfriend and say, honey, I absolutely love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to slip a ring on your finger. Will you marry me? But I need to fundamentally transform you. Right. You don't really inherently love something if you want to fundamentally transform it. And so when Barack Obama told us, and everyone started cheering on the Democrat side, that he was 4 or 5 days away from the fundamental transformation of this country, well, there you have it. Socialists, Marxists, otherwise known as Democrats, have zero love for this country as it is and as it was, because they continually want to change it into something that they really haven't described how they're going to do it, or they haven't really described what they want to change it to. But they just know Orange Man bad, America sucks, and let's spend tens of trillions of dollars to make it better. Whether it's the Better New Deal or the Green Better New Deal or whatever the socialists are tossing up, only equates to the fundamental transformation of this country, which also is code for overthrow capitalism, institute socialism. Because every single policy that the Democrats have proposed is a top-down, government-controlled, bureaucratic solution.
No, I mean you're absolutely right, and it's so befuddling to me, and so aggravating to me, and because again, I just don't understand how people can be so unbelievably underinformed that they fall for this tripe, and then you got this story, and I know that you have your red MAGA hat. And now apparently the Donald Trump Make America Great Again hat is the new symbol for the KKK. And an interesting comment, and I'm loving this comment from Laura Witt, who is a writer, talking about the Covington Catholic school controversy. White women, by the way, that's you, Megan. White women will always do the most to protect and humanize the white supremacist patriarchy. Now, I've got other comments here, but this has to do with an interview on the Today Show where this Savannah Guthrie had the audacity to interview a subject of one of the most hottest news issues and discussions in this country, and now all of a sudden she is supporting white patriarchy and supremacy. And again, there's tweet after comment on this, And it's been proven that the media, I mean, even Joy Behar came out and said that the media jumped too quick on this particular story. But even in the face of the facts, a lot of these people are doubling down on a story that's not even true. How can you be so intellectually raped by people, or how can you be so stupid to be victimized by that kind of an assault? Because every story that I've got in front of me that I've been working on for the last hour and a half is ripe with falsehoods and fallacies.
Well, yeah, and so what we witnessed here was a basically public lynching by the supposed trusted media who targeted and attacked children, rushing to the presumption of guilt, as they did with Brett Kavanaugh. Because the problem with the Covington students and their crime, basically, were four things. They're white, they're Christians, they're male, and they're Trump supporters. That is the superfecta of supremacy, don't you know? And so now that the left has picked children as targets, and then you see some reports saying, we rushed, we got the story wrong. We were trying to keep up with the story, and the Trump internet pounced. The Well, the most common thing to do from a decent society is to protect innocent children. And so when people pounce, because what we're watching is a complete hit job based on lies, smears, innuendos, and based on complete falsehoods, where they created a whole entire story that the kids were chanting "Build the Wall," which is a racist slogan, while wearing a red MAGA hat, which is a racist, uniform. And then not realizing that they're making those assumptions based on no audio from the video that they are scrutinizing. And then they also don't and then they stick the mug of the Indian all over the news without simply fact-checking who this guy is. I mean, it wouldn't have taken long to find out he's a complete fraud, that he is a leftist activist who never saw a battlefield, who went AWOL 3 times, who never left the United States, and was a refrigerator mechanic. If they would have just waited 24, 48 hours to make sure that they were checking themselves and the facts, we wouldn't have had 3 days of relentless libel, malignment, and assault against innocent children. And I hope to God that everyone that engaged in this libel is sued into bankruptcy, because the only way this is going to stop is if people start being held accountable. And there is a LA-based lawyer who's actually out of Las Vegas by the name of Robert Barnes, who has promised that within, I believe, the next 48 hours, it should be now 24 hours, that he's going to start bringing lawsuits on behalf of the Covington kids' families. And I hope it's hundreds of millions of dollars. And I hope they end up laughing all the way to the bank, and that all those people that engaged in this public lynching hang themselves. Figuratively, of course, not like literally.
Well, it is definitely, without a doubt, a monumental breakdown in reality and truth, but just goes to demonstrate yet again what Joy Behar had to say on the issue about the fact that we are overwhelmed with a burning desire to get Donald Trump out of office. We've got a mountain of circumstantial evidence. And I'm just looking at this stuff, Megan, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, it is absolutely insane how quick they are to jump, because the truth and reality just no longer matters. And, there's not a prejudiced bone in my body. I know there's not one in yours. I'm sick and tired of being a white supremacist. I mean, I've got African-American friends. I'm doing a TV program tonight with a buddy of mine that happens to be black. I'm on with him every single Thursday. He used to fill in for me on my program all the time. 2 of my former producers were African-American. I mean, it's mind-numbing to me where this narrative comes from. And for the life of me, I hope you're right. I hope they sue the living crap out of everybody involved. Maybe that'll get their attention once and for all.
Well, it'll definitely get their attention, but when held accountable, it's not only going to hit them in their pocketbooks, but it's also going to demonstrate to the rest of those who believe that they can engage in this type of assault, especially against the innocent, will not be tolerated. It's the only thing that's going to stop the fake news, I believe.
Right.
Because we had the BuzzFeed article, and then we had the Covington kids, and we had these back-to-back, chaotic reporting, which was causing chaos. And that's what the Democrats do best. They cause chaos. Because how better to cause chaos than to publish fake stories and start pitting people against each other? And that's exactly their goal and what they've done, whether it comes to their policies of diversity, which is rooted in division, or if it's rooted in fake news by creating all this chaos and literally having people believe things that simply are not true.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Megan, unfortunately, our time together has too abruptly come to an end. I think maybe next week we'll keep you on for an hour or so. I'll just take the program out an extra 30 minutes or so because I love spending time with you. I don't get to do nearly enough of it. But tell the listeners very quickly how they can find more about Megan Barth, your radio program, or if you can listen online. Give us all the juicy details.
They can go to ReaganBabe.com. I am on KKFT every morning from 10 to noon, which is Pacific time, and that's KKFT. So if you just 99.1 KKFT, they can find that online, and that is 99.1 FM KKFT, and that's 10 to noon. But ReaganBabe.com is where all my musings are, some of my past recordings, and they can contact me there through Facebook and Twitter as well.
Great. Well, congratulations on the program. I know you're knocking it out of the park, and I'm so happy for you. I mean, I know it's fun to do, and that's one of the reasons that when we took this program to the internet, I couldn't imagine not doing it because it just gets under your skin, it gets into your blood. But Megan, thanks for popping by. We'll do it again next week, and maybe take a little bit longer. I'll just reset the computer so we have a little bit more time to spend some time together. But I appreciate you popping by today.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thanks, Michael.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, let's wrap this puppy up. Go check Megan out at ReaganBabe.com. That's ReaganBabe.com. If you are in the local area, meaning in Alabama, tonight at 6 o'clock Central Time on Spectrum Channel 80, I'll be on Outspoken with Joe Lockett. I'm sure talking about many of these stories of the day as well. So check out Outspoken by Joe Lockett. Also support our friends over at LibertyOneTech.com. That's LibertyOneTech.com. And also pick up a copy of Unknown America. Still giving out free pocket constitutions and even waive the shipping for you. Tomorrow is our situational security broadcast. Don't forget that. We'll be talking to some local law enforcement officers of ways you can stay safe when interacting with law enforcement, as well as a very sad tragedy related to a young lady who lost her life in a distracted driving incident, and we've got her mother's going to be joining us as well to talk a bit about ways to keep our teenagers and our young people safe as we educate them on the dangers of the road. You've been listening to The Michael Hart Show right here on the Heart of America Talk Radio Network. Back with you tomorrow.